Always a blessing, isn't it? So I really could not find a better way to start this event and welcome my dear friends, Hubertus and Leon, Alexander. Um, First of all, a word of thanks for your generosity and interest and dedication in bringing this beautiful program together for today. Quick words about yourselves. Hubertus is a philosopher who is also sharing all the beautiful knowledge with young children. I always feel so jealous for this type of jobs. They really look like, the jobs in where you're building the future. So it's really an honor to have you here with us, Hubertus.
Thank you.
And Leon Alexander is also a good friend of mine. Leon is an anthropologist. And actually, through this event, I even realized that he wrote a thesis, let's say, around Yoginam, which I didn't know. So it's always good to have these little surprises in the preparation of such events. Leon and Hubertus will be guiding us today in the presentation of this amazing book, and perhaps more than this amazing book, this amazing level of perception that is offered by us, to us by Yoginam. Some words on our session. The session will be organized in around 4 blocks. And to make sure that nobody falls asleep in between the blocks, we'll also have some musical pieces. You just heard the harp mood played by Yoginam, which really, I shall not call it a musical piece because it's much more than that. We'll also be blessed by the sound of Alexander Gustav, which I believe is also around. I spoke with him before the event started. For some of you know Alexander, our peace singer, that has also marveled us in one of the events in the 21 Days Festival. Thank you for arranging this, Alexander, for your contribution also. And after these 4 blocks of presentations, we'll also have a time for a bit of a dialogue, which I hope you take the invitation to participate. And in this dialogue, there'll be a time to pose questions and interact around the world of Yoginam and the Book of Nam. With this, I think I could pass the word to Leon. I believe Leon will take us more into the Yoginam and who is Yoginam, and we'll take it from here. The floor is yours, Leon.
Okay, thank you, Mario, and good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Mario, for inviting us. This is really a great festival that you're organizing, and we're very grateful and happy to be part of it. So it's a great pleasure. So before I get started, I think we should ask also Hubertus to welcome everybody. Hubertus.
Thank you, Leon, and thank you for Mario for the invitation. And it's a beautiful opportunity to share, let's say, the story of a book that only a few people have read already because it's quite new, but actually has the promise of providing many more people with guidance and with let's say practical wisdom for daily life. Let's not talk too much about myself. I'm happy to be here, and I hope everybody will have a good evening and will pose questions during the broadcast, because in the 4th block we will try to go into them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hubertus. And then let's get started. We felt that before we could go into the Book of Nam, it would be useful for everybody to get a bit of an idea and a picture of the life and work of Yoginam, to see where is this all coming from and what is the scope in which this is happening. So we give a brief overview of quite a remarkable life. And originally born in the European continent in the Netherlands, Yoginam went to university to study the sociology of non-Western societies, where he specialized in the societies and cultures of the Middle East and North Africa. So that's where his interest at the time was. And straight after his studies, he went to work and live in the Middle East, for most part in Lebanon, and also short periods in Egypt and Tunis, but really the most part of his life there, for about 10 to 15 years, was in Lebanon. And his approach of living in that society was really to merge, the intention to merge in the local cultures, in the local tradition and local society of the people there, and not be some kind of a Western expat in its own isolated compound, but really to merge in the society. And he learned to speak fluently Arabic as well. And his experience of living in this totally different culture, different society, was his insight that people are from different cultures than us, whatever the perspective is. It's not just that they have different, let's say, different ideas and different values, but it's really that life experienced on very different layers of your being, communication, and that what has meaning to you. Really different layers of the being are involved from in comparison to your own culture. So this kind of multi-layered aspect of the human being was something he really got to experience firsthand there. And circumstances made that he was forced to move away from that region, not in the least because a civil war broke out in Lebanon while he was living there, and he lived for about 2 more years into the civil war there in that country. And also this was a profound experience for him to see how a trigger of events would really kind of trigger something on, you know, on the layers of experience of the people that created different ideas, a whole different perception of what is reality, and entirely different type of behavior that you had seen before. And this has left a very profound impression on him and gave him a very profound insight into the human being, this multi-dimensional creature that the human being is. So back in the Netherlands, another turn of events came, which marked his life, was that he came in contact with someone, a man who was a spiritual master, spiritual guide, and who was a master in the tradition of Sufism, of Persian Sufism. And this man became his master. He became the devotee of this Sufi master. However, it had not been so much the Sufism which has driven him to in that direction. In fact, in that part of his life, he was much more involved with Buddhism and other elements. So it was not that, but it was clear in that relationship, in that event, that was his way and his path. And that man was also the master of a very large Sufi order, as they are there. A relatively unknown one at the time in the West. There are some really quite well-known Sufi orders. This was not so well-known. And there was a relatively small group of, let's say, Western people. Let's use a generic term like that for a moment, who were also involved there, but not a very large group. There was another insight that this gave him, an experience that when you are people who are, let's say, getting involved in this spiritual endeavor, which is very profound, in the context of a tradition which belongs to another culture than their own, there were quite some pitfalls there, in fact. And well, one more obvious one is like more of an exotic identification with another culture, you could say. But it's also more profound in the sense that images and symbols and concepts that are then used in such a tradition come from a culture that, again, have very different meanings than we are identifying ourselves with certain images, and again, touching upon different layers of experience. So this makes it very difficult and very complex to be involved in such a tradition. An example that he once gave is about love, spiritual love, which is a very important element in Sufism. But he explained once that what in, let's say, an Oriental culture, that where this particular tradition came from, what is understood as love and what is experienced as love, and so also the kind of process that kind of triggers inside of you is a very different kind of love than we, let's say, again, the generic term West, from another culture, from West, let's say, I use a little bit West because I'm a little bit from my perspective probably, but it's more wider than that, but that you would associate with that concept. And so when you then start using such imagery, such symbols, which are tools to trigger a process, it doesn't always do that trick, do the work, because of your association is quite different. So the love in Sufism is how the traveler is a lover who longs to merge with his beloved and attain to that state where everything is the beloved and there's nothing but the beloved. This is this kind of view of Sufism, which means to trigger obviously a process that wouldn't always work in that context. So he got the insight that the most ideally you undergo a spiritual endeavor which is connected to the programming that you have from your own culture and your own background. And then another turn of events came after, again, 10 to 15 years, is where this man, his master, gave him the task of continuing that lineage himself, of carrying forward the tradition, this mysticism, this mystical tradition, and make himself available as a guide for people, to guide people in this spiritual endeavor. And he accepted, reluctantly, he says, accepted and embraced that task. But he also said that he couldn't do that in the context of the tradition of Persian Sufism, to carry forth, to carry that type of lineage in a tradition which is not his, because he said, I'm from European, would be, again, a very complex thing to do. And so the man, his master, said, no, you do it your way. You do it in your own way. And his way, and which is the task, his life task that he embraced, is to then translate this tradition of mysticism, of the spiritual endeavor, of a transcendental orientation, to a form and a language which is accessible and resonates with people living in modern, let's say modern Western secular societies. And this was his inspiration. And he also thought that looking at these societies, that it was also much needed, because it is has become very much absent from many of these cultures and societies. And in the end, he says that the transcendental orientation is a very natural psychological part of living, to integrate that orientation in your life. Because he says, as a human being, you are a transcendental being, you are a spiritual being. It's not just a part of, it's the very essence of what you are. So if you don't integrate that in your life, some crucial element is really, some crucial dimension is really missing, and it's not very conducive to high levels of well-being. And he also finds that this is true for a society as well. In fact, a society without a transcendental ideal and transcendental orientation can really run the risk of losing part of its humanity, its essential humanity. So he made that his task, and it was made, he accepted that. And this is the work that he started doing. And what does it then mean? What kind of expression has this evolved in? And it would say that the emphasis he lays is that it is, again, that it is a psychological process. A spiritual endeavor is actually a psychology, is a psychological process, but obviously not a psychology in the context of academic psychology or psychoanalysis or this aspect. It is a psychology that involves all layers of your being, because everything has to be involved. But it's psychology, and this resonates with contemporary ways of looking at ourselves, because if you look carefully at it, we look at ourselves, we qualify ourselves in a psychological way, if you will reflect on that. Another aspect which is very much part of our world today is the role of science. Science has become very much a source of meaning. Let's say, oh, it's scientifically proven, scientific studies have shown that, then it becomes really meaningful, then it becomes a reality, then it's true. And so this is a source of meaning as well. And so he uses also a language, I wouldn't say he uses scientific language, but definitely resonates with that aspect. How, and we all know a little bit how quantum science has actually come to very much insights of into reality, which is very consistent with what mystics have been saying all along, and this view that everything is like energy on a deeper layer is like energy, and you are in the end a being of energy, and we know how you can transform energy, and when you talk nicely to a plant, it grows better. There's this research done, but you play beautiful music with water, then the crystals become much more harmonious than when you don't do so. So we have this virtual understanding of our world, so we can understand how we can transform ourselves, how we can do that. So, and this, for example, the terminology that he has is resonance, resonance ethics, which is an ethics which tries to be aware of the resonance which you create with your attitude and behavior. So there's all this language in there, and this is what evolved into Nam and into Living Nam. So Yogi Nam has written 23 books, and they all are about the same. So that makes it easy, but everything, it is always approached from a different angle, a different emphasis, and so on, but it's all the time about the same. And the culmination of this work, the last book, the Book of Nam, I would find is really a culmination of his work, where everything comes together. So if you would feel inclined to explore that world, we should start with the Book of Nam and go from there. So we will take our steps now closer to exploring the Book of Nam. However, this is probably a very good moment to invite the beautiful music of Alexander, which is also inspired from poetry written by Yogi Nam about the all-loving one. Thank you.
I give thanks to the love of heart. I make music for the name Most High. I proclaim faithful love at daybreak, and continuously all through the night. With flutes and drums and strings, it is you who proclaims your praise. It is you who manifest your music. I have kept your love, I have spoken from love, I have acted from love, made no secret of love. You are all loving one, oh loving one, all is in you, oh loving one, oh loving one, all is in you. I beheld your face, I have song of your face, I was captured in grace, in the deepest embrace. You are, oh loving one, oh loving one, all is in you, oh loving one, oh loving one, all is in you.
So maybe it's nice to pick up where the music ended. All loving one, all is in you. Like this presentation that you're witnessing is also in you. Thank you, Leon, for introducing the life and work of Yogi Nam so well, because it gives an extra dimension to the reading of the books and the texts. And talking about reading a book, before we go into the book, I think I would like to invite everybody to contemplate on what a book actually is. Because there is a book that is published and you can buy it in a certain place and you can hold it in your hand. It looks very nice, this book, very nicely produced. But this is not the book. This is only the paper music. But in order to find the book, you have to read the music and listen to the music playing in you. So when you open up the book, then the book starts working. So I would like to invite you, when we make ourselves a little bit more acquainted with the book, to, let's say, absorb the words and the phrases and the impressions of the book, and let them resonate in you and see what happens in you. Because that is actually the book, what is happening in you while you are reading the book. And books like these books, you never read them twice in the same way. It's always a new book. So let's see if we can make a start in playing with the meaning of the book and see what happens. In order to do so, I have to share the PowerPoint. Let's see if that works. So this is the cover of the book, the Book of Nâm. And this book is, as Leon already said, a book that is written for our day, for our time. It's very exciting to receive a book like this. I have been studying philosophy for a long time, and I have been searching for a book like this for a very, very long time. And so there it is. And then you start reading the book. So I'll take you through the text and we'll pick out some sentences, because it's impossible to dig out everything that is inside. So I hope that you will forgive me when I'm not giving you everything that is there. In order to find it, I think you should go in that adventure yourself. So we go to the, how you call that, the content. And then you see what's in the book. It's a whole lot. And we'll start by diving into the emerging Naam, how this Naam emerges. And then we go to the red thread. And the rest we'll leave for another occasion. So. We go right to the third part here. And this says something that is quite impressive. But it's very difficult to imagine what it means. All living is transcendental, expressing infinite potentiality in an infinite variety, of which human living is a distinct range. So all living is transcendental, which means that all living is much more than we can understand and we can imagine that it is. And it expresses an infinite potentiality, which means that the experience we now have is just a fragment of what is possible. In an infinite variety. So every living, every moment, every life is expressing the living in a different way. So every expression is unique. And the human living has a distinct range in that expressing. A human being has an inherent urge to transcend its range and widen itself. So something of us realizes that we are much more than we can comprehend and we can experience. And something in us drives us to relate to that transcendental whole that we are. And that is also for you. So everybody who is now listening, me, Leon, everybody, this is about you. So the experience we now have and everything that we think and that we do and that we want and that we feel is expressing something that is beyond what we can comprehend, is expressing that transcendental reality that we are. And in this first part here, imagination is called. So we normally think that we are rational creatures, you know, animal rationale, Homo sapiens. We live in a society where reason is very highly appreciated since the Enlightenment. But as Shakespeare also said, we are creatures of imagination. And imagination is a very powerful aspect of our lives. If we cannot imagine something, it really is not there for us. So the way we imagine things also gives us the space in which we can navigate, we can live in. So it's always good to broaden your horizon in order to absorb more of this unknowable totality of which you are an expression. And when we ignore that transcendental totality that we are, then something goes wrong, in a sense that if we have a kind of idea of life, like life is this or life is that, and it has to go this way or it has to go that way, we are imagining a reality, but this reality we are imagining is a reality within a totality. So when we forget to realize that we are an expression of that totality, our imagination is leading us astray. And as Yogi Nam beautifully phrases here, all elaborations and formulations are like the fruit talking about the fruit, forgetting thereby the tree, without which the fruit would not be what it is. So this is already an indication of what Yogi Nam later on will write about. And it's a wise thing to remember that you are fruit of a tree, that you are an expression of a whole, of a totality that you cannot comprehend. Even the word totality is a human concept. It goes much farther than you can imagine, literally. So this book is written to help us to remember and to guide us to find our way in life. And it guides us by reading the book, and while you're reading, something happens. It speaks to you in a sense. So whatever I'm going to say now cannot replace what will happen when you dive into the book and you start relating to its content. In the next page, Yogi Nam phrases that Nam is an ancient voice re-emerging. So it is not something new. The Book of Nam is about something, which is not a something, but it's ancient. It's not new. It re-emerges many times. And every time when it is needed, it does so in times when the need is apparent. Every time when it is needed, a new way of expressing this voice will find its way to humanity. So this book is one of the ways. It is a way that is specifically fit for our times. As Leon expressed, a time of science, a time of virtual thinking. We can, let's say, imagine something. We can relate to that imagination. and we can navigate our lives while we are relating to that. But it's something virtual. It's not something real, like the internet. You know, we are relating all the time with the internet, and we are navigating, and it shapes our reality and our lives. So in that sense, it is possible to relate to something that we cannot understand. It's possible. And this book will help you to find a vocabulary to give shape to this relationship. And to put it in a vocabulary that is more close to daily life, you're relating to life. You're relating to the life that is expressing itself through you. You're relating to the life of somebody else you are meeting. And the same life that is expressing itself through you is expressing itself through the other. So when you meet somebody else, or when you meet an animal, or every situation, as a Sufi would say, is an expression of the beloved. It is an expression of this transcendental reality that we actually are. So meeting other people is meeting, in a sense, yourself, as we shall see. So Naam is an ancient voice re-emerging, and it does so in times when the need is apparent. And in this voice is a guidance that is awaiting reception in peaceful acknowledgement. So this book is not a book for discussion. You see, this book is very kind. It only speaks to you when you allow it to speak to you. So actually it's very tender. You have the relationship with the content is a relationship of tenderness. If you open up, it will speak to you. But if you start discussing it, it withdraws. You can imagine that for yourself. But it is meant for living life in its human variety. So it is not meant for a specific group of maybe chosen people or something like that. That's in the past. Let's forget all about that. Nobody is more special than another human being. This book is for everybody. And for everybody as a human being, exactly as you are. You don't have to be something else than you are. You have to be exactly what you are in order to pick the fruit from this book. So everybody's welcome. You don't even have to leave your tradition. You can be a Muslim, you can be a Hindu, you can be a Christian, you can be an atheist, you can be a shaman. You know, this book will help you to find the depth of that life orientation. Because it is reminding that all living is expressing an infinite potentiality. And there the strong sentence comes, a sameness of essence that is expressing itself in all of its myriad variations. Then Naam is a living essence. And I think that is something worthwhile to absorb completely. Naam is a living essence that lives as human living. So it is not something outside of us. It's really intimate. So, and it expresses itself in its ongoing experience by relating in a world. So we are experiencing a world and we are relating ourselves to what we are experiencing. So this is exactly what Naam is. Naam is a living essence that lives in the human living in its ongoing experience, like a river that is flowing. Experience flows all the time by relating in a world that is constituted, a little bit technically formulated, by phenomena instances. You know, we see a world around us. In front of you, you have a computer. That's a phenomenon. And you're experiencing that now. And that's an instance. So what we are now talking about is happening as we speak. So by being the infinite essence of human living, whatever is transcendental is fundamentally unknowable. And I think that is a point that we keep on returning to. We don't know that we don't know, but we keep on finding out that we don't know. So infinite essence, you know, everything that we can imagine about infinite essence is not the infinite essence. It is our imagination of an infinite essence. Even the concept infinite essence is a human concept, and therefore a human way of trying to relate to something that we cannot comprehend. And that is something difficult sometimes for people to live with. There is a fundamental unknowing. In that sense, we are not so very special. We are not on top of the food chain because we have a specific knowledge we can have. We are poor creatures, knowing nothing, being born, and yet we have to make something of our lives. But fortunately, life itself tries to find its way to guide us to do so in a beneficial way. Human living is lived in imagination and in dreams that are continuously changing every instant a new world. So, as we shall see, life is creating itself through you. And although we think that life is what it is, and it is determined to be so in the next few seconds too, there is the possibility to approach life in a way that the next moment will be a completely new moment, not determined by the past, not determined by guilt or by shame or by history or by heritage. So, but that is a, let's say, possible when you start realizing this infinite potentiality of which you are an expression. So this is a way of changing your identification from a determined I that thinks that it knows itself to an identification of an infinite potentiality and thereby accepting that you don't know it, because the not knowing this infinite potentiality is exactly what you need to become something new the next few seconds. I hope you can follow me a little bit. And there, in this weaving of the experience of the world, of what you are, in this weaving, the human being is its own cause and its own consequence. What is being witnessed as a reality is the consequence of the creative cause. The creative cause that each individual human being represents in the living between birth and death. So in the living between birth and death, each individual human being, you are the consequence of the creative cause. And this creative cause is expressing itself through you. So that's what I mean when Yogi Nam writes, every moment can be a new moment. Interesting is that how do you relate that to the world you're living in? Because there is an I and there's a world. So this creation, this creative cause creates an identification of an I world, a sense of I and a sense of world. And the sense of I cannot be there if there's not a sense of world. And the sense of world cannot be there if there's not a sense of I. I think time-wise, I have to hurry up a little bit. There's so much to talk about in this book. So I think it would be best if I dive into one more aspect before we come to the red thread itself. How much time do I still have, Mario?
I think the question was wrongly posed, is how much time do I still don't have?
Okay. Then we'll jump to the red thread, and then we go to the next part.
It's a quantic, you promised a quantic jump, so that's fine. A philosopher is a philosopher, Roberto. So we were counting with this. Huh?
It's beautiful to every time when I read this, then I enter a universe, and it's a beautiful universe to be in. And when you go out of that universe into the daily life is actually infused with this universe. It's quite magical. So the red thread on page 37 can be formulated from the human perspective in this way. Everything, so try to imagine, then I'll quit, right? Try to imagine this, maybe with your eyes closed, that everything that is witnessed, so everything that you are witnessing, everything that you possibly can imagine, is integrally in and of an infinite and therefore a noble all-embracingness of which nothing is or can be excluded. Everything in this allness of all is equally sharing. So nothing is excluded and everything is equally sharing in that. And then let's say one more thing. So how to live your life with this information, yeah? Because the way to live in this completeness is to find your way in attunement with this whole. So I think next block we'll go a little bit more into that. Thank you. There's a beautiful song coming up now from Alexander. The Home of Love.
Seek the rose of your desires from yourself. How long shall you dart from branch to bough like a nightingale? Yield repliant in the grip of love, for the impudent lover is destroyed. Never have you endured the sting of love's cruelty, nor savored its fidelity and kindness. Palaces and hovels are equal in the eyes of one who yearns for the friend. Wherever he goes, it's the home of love. Wherever he looks, he sees love's sign. Wherever he goes, it's the home of love. Wherever he looks, he sees love's sign. Wherever he goes, it's the home of love. Wherever he looks, he sees love's sign. Wherever he goes, it's the home sign wherever he goes. It's the home of love. Wherever he looks, he sees the sign wherever he goes. It's the home of
No,
So Leon, wherever he goes is the home of love.
may you share a symbol with us, Hubertus?
I'll share a symbol.
A symbol of love, of course.
And the
There's no
symbol of
other. There is no
contemplation.
other. So Hubertus, this is a very old symbol designed by Yogi Nam to express what we are as human beings, right? So we see these 4 fields, and this is the part of you which is experience. And Yogi Nam says you are experience. That's all what you are. That's through which you live. It's all perception. He refers to this as a body, these 4 layers, body experience, mind experience, soul experience, and spirit experience. And we don't have the time to go too deep into what this means. But what the real importance of this symbol is the empty space around it, because that's also part of you. And the empty space, which is limitless, is the same empty space as you see in the heart of the symbol, which is heart, which is you. So this expresses the reality where you are both a certain limitation in experience, although it is a sharing in experience, which is much more wider than you may find yourself to be as a person, if you identify with you as person. And there is a limitless part of that. There's a sharing in an infinity, which is also you, but that's not you, and yet you share in it. And he calls that awareness. And so you are a being which is awareness, and it is experience. And the awareness is not something that you are conscious of, that you can be conscious of. It's there. It's kind of ungraspable aspect of you. This is this transcendental part of you. You could say the experience is the horizontal part of what you are, and the awareness is the vertical part of what you are. And the goal of Nam and the way of Nam is designed with all the tools and instruments that, or as Yogi Nam prefers to call them, skillful means that are there, are to open in your experience, to open experience to awareness what you are. And the more you open to awareness, the more awareness will influence that experience, will influence the way you experience life. So this is this orientation, this transcendental orientation, which is what Nam is about. And what the affirmation, maybe Hubertus, could you tell us about the affirmation in this sense? What is the affirmation?
Yeah, so talking about the affirmation is always a little bit awkward, because it's not an affirmation of something. It is more like a basic attitude that it is what it is. Whatever it is what it is. You are what you are at this moment in time, but you cannot deny that. It is what it is. But there's also a kind of a realization that you are doing that. You are doing that what is. Because you are that transcendental aspect expressing itself through experience, which is the most concrete form of awareness, is experience. But this most concrete form of experience is sharing in this wider whole. And the Book of Nam gives tools to live with that, because it is ungraspable. The affirmation is like when you go out, and I think it was raining with you, Mario. So if you go out and you feel the rain, you can only acknowledge that it is raining. It is what it is. So it would be strange to say it's not raining. It is raining. So affirmation is something very simple. It's an attitude. And in order to explain it, we can go a little bit to the personal layer of life. And because how many times do we not accept what is? We try to deny what is. But then you actually turn yourself against this whole that is expressing itself, creating kind of a dissonant in musical terms. So accepting what is accepting that whatever is expressing itself is the totality of which you also are an expression. So the best way of dealing with life is peaceful acknowledging that it is what it is. And then you go and try to make the best of it. And trying to make the best of it, playing with it, is also affirmation. Because it is taking upon you this creation, this creator responsibility. So it is not something passive. I am peacefully acknowledging that it is what it is. No, I am actively affirming life by living, knowing that I don't understand it.
It is, Hubert, is also right. The affirmation is that everything is as it is, but also you acknowledge that it is all an expression of that totality, of that allness of all, that you are all the time sharing in, that it is this phase of that, right? You say like, oh, let's say the totality is the beloved, and that makes everything the face of the beloved. So if you acknowledge that, then you will also start dealing with that reality in a very different way, because it's constantly showing you, it's constantly making itself known to you. I think what you just now said, what I think one very powerful tool of Nam that we should mention, I believe, is this aspect of the unknowability. We say, okay, this is allness of all, it's an infinite potentiality, it's an infinity which we share, but it is unknowable. And then you can say, well, but that's a little bit of a problem because we don't know what does it, but it's not a problem, actually. It is meant, let's say, to be that way. I guess if you, because the unknowability, if you can't handle the unknowability, let's say in your state of limitation, yeah, then maybe unknowability is a problem. But in a state of without limitation, then the unknowability is exactly what you need. And I think this is very powerful. So it means, although it is unknowable, this totality, this oneness, and give it words that you want. Although it is unknowable, I make it still the essence of my orientation in life. I still make it the essence of how I look and experience life. And so much so that also in Nam, basically, you also have to develop a relationship even with it, because you have to make it very personal, very intimate, because it's constantly there. And this is of course the origin of a term that Yogin, of the sound that Yogi Nam was inspired by, which is Abba, which does not have any meaning. However, you, let's say, make the agreement with yourself that that expresses this unknowable totality. But by giving it, like, say, a sound, you can make it much more intimate. You can develop a relationship with that, and then everything is the face of Abba. I think this is a very powerful tool, which means also that there's nothing that you need to believe in. So the affirmation and the state of certainty that evolves from that doesn't require to believe in anything. And that is a very powerful tool as beings of imagination. So you shape that reality in this way, but that has a very beneficial effect on your well-being and how you live life and how life then further evolves. I think that was important to
well,
highlight.
it brings us to the quality of experience, because let's be frank. Everybody wants to be happy, right? Everybody wants to lead a good life. Everybody wants to well, feel good, which is actually also a kind of a trap, because wanting to feel good can easily turn into a kind of an addiction. So there is this approach of when you use the tool Abba to relate to this unknowable allness of all, you're relating to yourself, your deepest essence, right? By using this tool, you can have a loving relationship with that by doing that. That's the psychological tool that you were talking about in the beginning. It is a way of managing our creation of experience in a way that well-being can filter through. We can, when we find a good relationship with this totality, with this allness of all, this unknowable allness of all, with Abba, really, then life becomes different. But when we chase good feelings, when we chase the things that we think we know, because that we believe that will make us happy, then actually we are addicted to feeling good, and we are depending on imaginary means of being well. So there is a difference between knowing and being. So we are that unknowable totality, but we don't know that unknowable totality. But it's more fundamental. We are it. So we have to manage being that. And I think that every thought we have, every feeling that we cultivate, every wish that we chase, everything that we do with our behavior is creating a resonance and it's creating consequences. And these consequences, they touch us, because these consequences are consequences in a totality that is our essence. So then maybe you can say something about how can we, by attunement, manage manage that.
Well, I think you mentioned the key term there that we also have to introduce in this context, which is attunement, which is a word that Yogi Nam introduces, which has this, the connotation, the meaning of like you attune a radio to the right frequency to be able to receive the broadcasting well. This is what this attunement means. So again, you share in a wider whole, which is beyond you, but you are fully part of that. So let's say your life is a movement which is taking place in a wider movement, because it's a dynamic thing, which is wider than you. And then you're in Nam, your aim would be to attune your life with a wider movement, because it's not, instead of just putting in there what you want in that life, which you have to put, and you work to put that in so that life becomes the way you want things should be for you. No, you let go of that and you try to live in attunement. And Yogi Nam says also in the book, there's always in situations you can ask, like you can try to listen, okay, what is the right direction to take here? And there's always, he says, very subtle indications what is the right direction for you to take, but you have to take yourself out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
and you have to listen. And Yoginam's life has many events which we can't unfortunately narrate now, which demonstrate how this attitude of listening then really this acting in attunement. He says that basically life takes care of you. Life takes care of itself. So life takes care of you. Your life takes care of itself, but you have to allow it to take care of itself. And so you have to listen, and you have to open, and you have to attune. So attunement is again also a very important element. And maybe this is the right moment to attune to some beautiful strings of Alexander.
Bluestone Mountain.
Wow, guys. Thank you so much. Such inspiring words, and perhaps more than inspiring words, such an inspiring invitation, yes? For us to be also that book that Hubertus was saying, for us to try that resonance of that book, how that it plays on us. Yes. So I guess we have now time for, some questions, some comments, some whatever. Everyone is invited to write questions in the chat, or even write your name, and I believe you can come live also and just ask the question directly to Bertos and Leon. Will be delighted to listen to your questions, to comment upon them, and answers is something else. um, Well, I'll give you time for you to start thinking if something is coming. I must say I had a question. It's a question that I faced before in the encounters that I had with Yogi Nam and his environment. Why a book? When you when you meet with Yogi Nam, and today we went so much with the unknowability. I even have it difficulty to say, and a series of concepts, a series of words, because at the end they are words that come with a certain weight. And yet, in Yogi Nam's presence, in Yogi Nam's art mood, there is like something more fundamental. So why a book?
Mario, maybe I shall start, and Hubertus has a very unique perspective on books, so he can share it. Well, I guess that just like the heart mood is something which flows through Yoginam, it's not composed, it flows through him. The same, all this text just flows through him. I think it is something which just imposes itself, and it has to come through his fingers to get out the text. And then why a book? Because it's just the most practical way of bringing text together and making it available, of course. But I think what you mean here is that, look, the text, the written text of Yoginam is just one element in his work. So indeed, you emphasize the harp, but there's also other aspects. There's an asharum where you to come and bring these things to practice, because it is about the practice of life. But I think he with the text, what is very important, he gives a vocabulary through which you can deal with life, because you are also the spoken word. You are also a being of language and words, and he says that the language you use basically also shapes your perception. So he gives a language that you can use to create meaning out of your world, which shapes kind of a perception beneficial for opening to awareness, for having this orientation in life. This is the key. So it's indeed a tool. So and maybe you could go deeper into that, saying like, well, in many of our societies, many of our language is, if you look at it, we come from a historical tradition of thinking which is very much looks at the world in dualistic terms, you could say. And by using that type of terminology, you constantly bring yourself astray out of the right direction. So the language he introduces is really like a monistic language, a unifying language of looking at the world. So this is why he writes, to provide us also with this tool, with this instrument, and with this skillful means, which is the word he uses. This is what I would say. Hubertus, maybe you would like to compliment.
No. I think you explained it very beautifully. But I could, when you say why a book, then it depends on what you mean by book. And that's what Leon already suggested I would say, you know, because if you're talking about a paper thing with the words inside, that's, well, then it's why a book? There's so many books. You know, if you read it and you think, oh, interesting, you put it in the closet, and then it doesn't really is something. But if you realize that it can do something, you know, if you open up to it and it can work in you, a kind of an alchemy or a kind of a, it opens up to reshape the way you are approaching life in a way that is it's more beneficial and brings about well-being. And well, then the answer is quite simple, because we can use a book like that. Look around, we can use a book like that very well.
I think we absolutely need a book like that. Yes. Thank you so much, Roberto Leon. I believe indeed that you frame it very well as also part of a wider range of tools, if you want to call it like that, that are made available by Yoginam. I also noticed that we have people joining from both ashrams, right? Both in Nihar and Amonim. I would like to make a special salute to them, and just let know people that are here with us that perhaps are not so familiar. There are these two wonderful places in Belgium and in south of Spain that I hope at some stage you'll have the opportunity to visit and really experience, really live from within all that we've been talking here so far. Now we have a question coming from my good friend Lina, and instead of reading it, I'm going to challenge Lina perhaps to ask it directly. The floor is yours, Lina.
Thank you, Mayu. So I think Hubertus said, can you hear me well, or is the sound weird?
It's a bit of echo. I believe you are very close to our tech support, and it probably didn't notify you. It's just a hint I have. I'm not entirely sure.
Hold on. Now I think it should be better, right?
It's better, yes. A bit of separation. It's all.
Healthy also, I think. Yeah. So I think it was Hubertus that said that to be able to listen to life, you have to put yourself out of the equation. And how can you do that? How can you separate yourself from life?
Fortunately, I was not the one who said it.
Okay.
It was Leon who said it, so maybe.
Oh, sorry, Leon.
So I was looking forward
question.
to Hubertus solving this riddle on my behalf, but thank you for that question. It's a very good observation. Of course, you cannot in the very end, you cannot. But I guess it's more like an intention that you try to be alert to, let's say, your personal wishes, your personal ideas of what should happen to impose on the situation, and rather to try to withdraw those. And this is again a matter of attunement, like when is this am I kind of imposing a personal wish on a situation? Because in the end, we are beings with a will, we take direction in life. So this listening also, as Yoganam says, is a very active, it's not a passive listening, it's an active interaction with life. So in that way, that's the aspect, which I imperfectly called taking yourself out of the equation. That part where you sometimes you want to kind of force a situation because you think you really want that or you need that in your life, whereas life is really telling you not, and you get a struggle, you don't do the struggle, you let go. Letting go is a very important element. So that's what I would say about that. Thank you, Lina.
Yes, thank you, Leon. I don't know, Bertus, if you like to complement
A little bit, because it's also nice to experiment with that. And so if you have the tendency, because we I don't know, most people learn from young age on to impose their will and ideas on the world. Because otherwise you might be in jeopardy, or maybe other people, whatever, you know. It's a dualistic way of looking upon life. So when you consider yourself not as an expression of a whole, but as an atom among other atoms that are competing with each other, you know, and there's not enough for everybody. So then you have to compete. You create a very different life's experience. But if you change your perspective to a perspective of an allness of all, of which you and everything else is equally an expression, equally sharing, then it becomes also very interesting to play with it. So in that sense, if you are in a meeting, for instance, and then you have an idea, so you want to suggest your idea to everybody else in order to give some influence on the outcome of the meeting. And that moment is a very beautiful moment to practice and to sit back and keep still and listen and observe what happens. And then sometimes it might happen somebody else has the same idea. So then life is expressing the idea through another person, and that's a miracle to witness. So it's all, you're giving life the opportunity to show its wonder to you.
So true, Berto. So beautifully said. It's so amazing, because with some of the friends that are here today, we have also been expressing to what extent the different people we bring around these 21 special days, how much of that listening is coming from different direction and yet leading us in the same flow, in the same river. And as you say, Roberto, that's so amazing to see that abundance, that you know, that generosity that life provides us with. Yes, wow.
Maybe this subject allows us to touch upon two other aspects, which is about the ethics of the Nam ethics, because it does apply a certain ethics, and there are kind of two rules and that you could use for yourself there, and that Yoginam formulated very early on in the past already. That first of all is the attitude of loving kindness and respect. I mention them because I find them always very inspiring, and it means like whatever the situation, whatever somebody or something might do to you, your intent is to always unconditionally treat the other being with the attitude of loving kindness and respect. So it's not like, oh, this person does something like this, now I allow myself to get angry or nasty. No. A priori, loving kindness and respect. And the other aspect was like, always treat the interest of the other to be more important than your own interest in a situation. Of course, this is skillful mean. It's not like a law, like, because then you can get very complicated questions about that. But as a general attitude, it is very inspiring to work with that, because these are kind of tools to again take yourself out of the equation. And it's also in the understanding that the interest of the other is not separate from you, because that's again an expression of the same oneness of that totality that you're sharing in. So that is when something becomes the face of that, then the interest of the other is not just something else. So these are two elements of the ethics which are quite inspiring if you apply them.
Yes, thank you so much, Leon. I'm looking at the people around. Is Josh wanting to ask a question, or was more a sign of appreciation of things? Yeah.
Maybe we should look at the time as well, Mario. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I shall not be taken from. Yeah, I guess we're perhaps getting to the end. Josh, would you like to ask a final question, or were you asking for the floor, or?
It was a sign of loving.
I was a sign of
appreciation.
Thank you.
We appreciate it with you then, my friend. So yes, perhaps I think considering the time and that the session is now, we're getting to the end. I have a piece of good news. I just learned them before the session started, that we have a very nice gesture by Nam Publishing and by Yogi Nam, that for the participants of this festival of the 21 days, I believe we're going to be offered with a discount when buying this book of, nobody can guess, right? 21%. So the 21 days discount is going to be 21%. And of course, the validity date is going to be the 21st of December. So easy.
2021.
2021, yes, yes, I forgot that part. 2021,
And don't
21
forget
days
the
of
discount code now, Mario. The discount.
Oh, the
code.
discount code. Oh, thank you,
don't-
Leo. Thank you. Of course, the discount code is also very difficult to guess, and it's 21 days. So discount code 21 days. Information how to buy the book can be found actually on the event page. 21% of 21 days of conscious living. Yes. I'll really like to thank both of you, Leon, Hubertus, from this beautiful, deep, yet practical, lecture you gave us today. And I think that's always the challenge, right? How, these things often, they came across of being of an extreme simplicity, but sometimes, masked with some levels of complexity and not always easy to apply in life, but certainly simple. So I'd like really to thank you from my heart for this beautiful session. I'd like to thank everyone that joined us here today. Special thanks also to Alexander for all the careful work he did in preparing these intermezzos that, in a way, were today so much part of this book. And thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for organizing this and triggering us to do this.
Maybe one final word that Leon and I are aiming actually to do this a little bit more often, to take texts of Yogi Nam and to analyze them, talk about them, make them practical, absorb them together with viewers. So it becomes more and more part of daily life. So if anybody is interested in participating in something like that, most welcome, most welcome.
This is excellent, Hubertus. So funny. I was discussing today with Lynn and a couple of friends that one of the wonders of this festival is not, the events, of course, are very fulfilling, but it's also this triggering of initiatives like the one you described, a friend that started to go more in the piano wheeling, and so many others that come, and then, the seed that just, raises. And I believe that to finish, we cannot think about a better way than ask Nicholas to play us a bit of harp mood and to say goodbye to each other and thank to each other. Nicholas, can you play us the last?